I'm speaking with Jane Fendelman, the author. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Author of the book Raising Humane Beings. I like that title. You were born in St. Louis, Missouri. You went to college in Springfield, Missouri, and then when you were in your early 20s, you moved to Arizona, and at 21, you became a dorm counselor at a boarding school. And I guess that's where you got your taste of something that you like to do.
Right. Actually, I always liked working with kids. In fact, my first job ever was when I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old, and I got a job, not a paying job, but, you know, it was my job to be playground supervisor.
Oh, I bet you like that, huh? Break up fights, did you?
Well, there weren't many fights because I got the kids, the boys and the girls, playing football. Everybody played football together. I always thought it was sad that girls didn't get to play football.
Yeah, so you encouraged it. That's good.
Yeah, so I was 10 and I taught them football, and so I've always loved kids, just always.
And between 25 and 30, you call it your lost years. I love that. And you know what? When you say that, see, because I've met you and I know you, I've done work for you in your home, and I think I imagine kind of a hippie, you know, subculture young woman when you say that. But I think what you're referring to lost years, you weren't really you. You weren't really the person that you felt that you were, and you were probably, I think from what you said, you were in real estate, whatever. So you were trying to play the professional life, and that was not you.
Right. And I probably had way more lost years than that. It's just those are probably the most clearly because I was doing work that wasn't my true path of heart.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I think I got sidetracked in real estate because of something my father said on the phone. He was in St. Louis. My family's in St. Louis. I'm here in Arizona. And he said something like, you know, why don't you go into real estate? And back then, when I was
you didn't have any out. Yeah, you didn't know where you're going. Oh, okay, why not?
Well, back then when I was a kid, I really wanted his approval. And so, and I didn't realize it. And so just him mentioning real estate, and I was kind of drifting around, and I was, when I was a kid, I think I was kind of lost a lot of the time when I was a kid growing up. So, yeah, but the most obviously lost years for me were when I got off into real estate.
Yeah.
And wasn't following my true path of heart.
Yes. Well, I that's why I kind of see, I really do see, you're almost like a little hippie. It almost seems like to me that you're into the artistic. I should show the, I should put up the picture of your purple carpet.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that purple carpet.
Yeah, I have
Unbelievable.
Often,
you know, I can walk into a house over in Mesa, and I can tell you if it's a Mormon house every time. Not by them saying, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I can just tell because they have the same thing. But when I look at your purple, carpet, I think to myself, that is not the house of an Orthodox Jew.
I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But I have always said if I didn't become a shrink those 22 years ago, that I would like to be an interior designer.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think I have a picture of your dining room table. It's interesting as well.
Yeah, I love.
I don't know what to describe it because the rug is, you know, it's look like the 70s kind of look there, but the shag is so long it's exaggerated from what it used to be.
It's very modern. It's actually my style is what I would describe as industrial chic. So it's very urban and very contemporary and forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then around the age of 30, 31, you went to the Omega Vector Shop, and that kind of changed your views on things. Tell me, I didn't get a chance to look that up online. You said it was in existence now, but what exactly is it? It's a self-reflection thing?
The Omega Vector Personal Growth Workshop it's a self-awareness seminar. It goes 4 days. You don't sleep there, but it's two evenings. Thursday, Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday day. And it was just so enlightening for me, and it was where really I started to find myself and my true path of heart. And the founder, George Dare, who just died about a year ago, he became like my soul dad. Like, I didn't really have parents around growing up, and George became this mentor to me, and also the counselor who referred me to Omega, because when I met Sue Gilmore, my counselor, I had just turned 30 and I was miserable. I was so depressed, and I felt so lost in my life that I had just quit real estate, and I was newly divorced, and I was only married for a couple of years. But I was really thinking about suicide. And I didn't tell my counselor because I didn't want an argument. And I did tell her I wanted her to just check me into a hospital so I could sit in the corner and rock and be drugged. I just wanted to be drugged and not have to work at life, and I didn't have any idea how to make my life better. So Sue referred me to the Omega Vector Workshop, which is free. It's always been free, and it still is free. Everybody who works there is a volunteer. It's right here in Phoenix on Indian School on 18th Street. And that's where I had my first, quote-unquote, awakening. And once I started getting to know George, who I really say raised me, George and Sue Gilmore, my counselor, and George, the founder of Omega, really raised me. And George got me interested in studying all kinds of different teachings, philosophies, ethics, spiritual teachings, and it was right there, right at age 30, when I really became a student of life, and my life began to get better. And then I got a 3-year master's degree in 2 years. I got my master's degree in counseling, and it was right around that same time I started writing Raising Humane Beings, because I realized the way that people were parenting their children was there were imbalances that were making the children behave wacky. And so the children were getting diagnosed as having something wrong with them, and then we would drug the children, even though there was nothing actually wrong with the children. And that's how I became kind of famous in Phoenix for curing ADD and ADHD without drugs in 3 to 5 sessions with just the parents.
Yeah, because every time I turn around, they're constantly talking about over-drugging kids. I know that when they take a foster kid, they shovel this stuff to them, they pill them up and put them in the corner, as you say.
Yes, I started out working in the system. It was I worked for a state-funded facility that had group homes for boys that were wards of the state, and it was. There were
on 5 or 6.
It was depressing.
Yeah.
And I was constantly at odds with the administrators and the doctors.
Yeah, they keep your hands tied from when you want to really help them.
Well, the kid would walk in for a session and he's like a zombie and can't communicate. Lost his personality.
My gosh.
His personality is gone.
Yeah, they make it easy to manage when they're doped up.
Right, and drugging children to do better in school is cheating. It's just like taking steroids to win an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
So we're not teaching self-mastery, and we're not teaching self-mastery because we, the adults, aren't practicing self-mastery. Self-mastery is being able to observe your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and express them in a healthy way. We just don't have any system for teaching that. We need to teach that in kindergarten. In fact, I go into schools and churches and corporations. I just taught a law firm a big Scottsdale law firm. I just taught a Subway corporate office, healthy communication and conflict resolution, because
Yes.
we don't teach it. We need to teach it in grammar school. Healthy communication. Most people do the bark and run, where they yell or they walk out or they do the silent treatment. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I got a habit of doing that.
Well, it's most people because we never learned anything other than that. And we need to start from what happens in school.
My problem is if I'm directing somebody and they don't do what I say, you know, I might explain it to them a little bit detailed, but my natural reaction is to just yell louder. You know, I mean, I want to just get them do what I want you to do, and then that's it. I don't want to debate or anything else.
Makes it harder.
Yeah, it makes it harder. Now, my sister's a teacher, and what she always says, and she finds it shocking, is what she does is she'll instead of saying, "You kids move over there," and then, you know, they won't do it. But if she says, "Listen, you know, we're going to have people running through here, and if you can stand over there, they can pass through." And then boom, automatically, as long as they understand what they're doing, and then they just do it.
So she explains it a little bit.
Yeah, she explains it. And then herself, she
very
has
respectful.
Yeah, and then they respond positively to that. And then she has a daughter. She's my niece, and she's just turned 14. And when she was just a little kid, we didn't want to, because we grew up we both grew up in an environment where we kind of held back a little bit. You know, don't do this, don't do that. And as you stay. Okay. You know, you mentioned to talk about the rules of or the ideal of what a success is. Well, we were forced to do these behaviors that were so-called being a success. When you yourself, and we can get into that later, you're supposed to be a success. Well, and with her, we wanted her to feel confident in expressing herself, and so we would kind of nudge her to express herself, and she became, you know, she grew to be confident, and by the time she was about, I don't know, 8 or 9, she just became a monster because she was just so confident, and she'd want to do anything that she wanted to do, you know. So it was a battle of trying to just tone it down a little bit, but we always explained, this is why you're doing something, and this is why you're not, and so that they would get a better understanding of themselves and give them a room to make a judgment.
Mm-hmm. I always use the yes after you. It's chapter 10 in my book.
Yes after you.
And whenever I want kids to do something that they don't want to do, whether it's clean your room or get off the computer or get your homework done, I always say, well, I don't always. I ask them once, and then I never repeat myself because that's nagging. So the second time I say, I have a surprise for you. Would you like a surprise? And they say yes. And I say, okay. Right after you get off the computer, wash your hands, come down to dinner, I'll give you a big surprise. And maybe the surprise is I already had apple pie made for dessert.
Yeah,
they come down to dinner.
Yeah.
And I say, well, I got you your favorite dessert. It's apple pie. And that's the surprise.
But what don't they feel is a little slack of disappointment, or they've been kind of screwed over?
But I usually mix it up. I mean, sometimes it's
yeah, well, you got to be creative and do that time and again.
With my girls when I worked at the boarding schools and with the troubled teens that were kicked out of their homes, I used penty beads. These, you know, they're like clear marbles that are flat on one side. Or sometimes I just use marbles and seashells with kids, and they like to collect them. But with my girls, the troubled teens at the boarding school, I had penty beads that were different values. They were 5, 10, and 50 points, and they were clear green and blue, I think. And if they saved up a certain number, it also taught them to save money. These penty beads were worth a value. And at the end of the week, if they had enough penty beads from good behaviors, oh God, I hate that I put it that way. I don't call it good behavior. When they're doing something that enhances their life,
yes,
I give them a bead. I'm always, with kids, I'm always looking at, am I controlling something that I need to have my way, and so I'm impeding their true path of heart? Like, I want you to be a doctor.
Yeah, that's very important.
You want to be a helicopter pilot or a jet, a jet fighter pilot, and I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I would give them.
You're reinforcing their instinct to do what they
and at the end
feel
of
they
the
want
week,
to do.
they could buy one of these giant stuffed animals that were up on the shelf in the common room.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't punish them either. When we had a timeout, we would sit together. If they or I got too upset, we would sit either together or alone in the common room next to this giant fish tank that we all put our money in to buy. They put some of their allowance in to buy this giant fish tank. And we watched the fish tank instead of the TV when I had my dorm. Fish tanks are better than TV.
Well, you also say about the other half of it is being an example.
Right.
And now, but you put it in a different way. Tell us about that. I mean, it's almost as if they lead you instead of you leading them, or you're learning from them. Explain that.
Right. I've always said that we have it backwards. We think as parents or as teachers we're supposed to teach the children, when the reality is they're supposed to teach us. We're supposed to learn from them. When you have children or when you work with children, you're required to be the best version of yourself that you can be. You have to be a better person, or else it won't work well with you.
Yeah, that's right. It's silly. You can talk all the talk you want, but if you're not yourself leading it, I mean, that really sets the true impression.
Right, exactly.
And it's, there was a woman I met. I was working inside of an apartment complex, and there was all these young black kids playing around. And there was one, a white kid that was playing with them, and the grandma was so prejudiced that even in that, the kid had nobody else to play with, and other than the black kids. And the grandmother, the white grandma, was so prejudiced that he grabbed the white kid and pulled him away. And the woman that I was doing work for got so upset that she ran out on the porch and she screamed at the woman. And then she came in, she said, "Well, I'm sorry." And I said, "Well, no, not at all." I says, "You were showing those kids that was wrong." You know,
sad,
and you don't want to see adults fight, or it's not healthy for that, but it is healthy for them to say, "Hey, listen, there are two sides to this little argument about this kid getting pulled away, and she's establishing that was wrong." And I thought, well, that was the other kids saw it. This place was just like a zoo with kids, and I thought, well, that was interesting. Now, what I also want to talk about was the couple. Talk about how you... Oh, no, wait. First, before that, tell me one more time. What is it you do? You say you do in 5 days?
I know how to cure ADD and ADHD. I know how to cure ADD and ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, most cases of depression, and mild autism and ED, emotional disorders, within 3 to 5 sessions, without drugs, by just working with the parents. And I was going to say about that scene at that apartment complex, that's sad that little community of people didn't know how to use the talking stick technique, in which case they could have sat down together and said, "Wow, when I saw you pull your child away, that really broke my heart." And then the other person just repeats back what they heard. This is what I teach in the schools and churches and
well, I go through you tell me if this is wrong. I go through a 6-step conflict resolution. It's hear it out, feed it back, question it, answer it, confirm you settled it, and then you move on. Now I don't.
Oh.
I don't know. That's not me, actually. That's Tom Hopkins. It's actually a way of dealing with objections. But I kind of changed the names around and changed the purpose around on each. Well, generally it's the same, but it's a way of set, and it almost works almost every time.
And it was what were the steps again?
Oh, it's hear it out, feed it back, question it, answer it, confirm you settled it, and then you move on. And then and I thought some of the points weren't as important as others, but as time went on, the more I used it, I was like, I missed a step, and I could see that there was a difference. So I equally applied, and even the last step, moving on, is a kind of a way of exhaling after an argument. You know, you've settled it, and then you transversed the conversation into something else, and it was like you didn't even hit a speed bump. You know, it's like, hey, this is cool.
I can see where that would work. I mean, those steps sound like they would work. Sometimes, and this kind of leads us into the couples thing, sometimes people don't move on because even though a thing
they argue, they don't settle it. They don't settle it. They
didn't hear it with compassionate ears.
It was a part of.
So what happens is one person wants the other person to move on and get over it, and the first person can't because
it's
the
not
thing
settled.
Wasn't actually,
it was never settled out.
Wasn't actually heard
with
compassion.
Yes.
And people have to feel heard and understood in order to feel good in a relationship.
Yeah, that was the important part of feeding it back. You know, you always feed back what they say. That acknowledges what they say. You know, you're saying, you know, that I shouldn't insult you in front of people. Or an example, the other night when we went out for dinner, I said you didn't know how to cook in front of all our friends. You don't like that. Yes, I don't like that. Okay, see, now I understood you. See, that makes them feel a little bit of relief there. Yeah. And
I actually have a more advanced process that I take couples through called the 4 A's, because nothing sticks more than wounds that stick most permanently between couples and parents and their children. So there's a healing process that I call the 4 A's. You acknowledge. The person tells you, here's what you did that hurt me.
Yes.
You say, I acknowledge or I understand that I did.
Part of the feedback,
that I did X, Y, Z to hurt you. Then you do the apology. That's the second. It's acknowledge, apologize, act of amends, and ask forgiveness. So the second one is apologize. I deeply apologize for stepping on your toe. And number 3 is act of amends. What can I do to make it up to you because I hurt you? And the other person might say, well, you can give me a foot massage.
I like that. Yeah, I like that quite a bit.
And then you do the act of amends, and then you ask for forgiveness. Can you please forgive me for hurting you by stepping on your toe?
Yes.
And then the person says, yes, I forgive you. And there's something about people that when they don't say those words, when we don't say, I
you're
apologize,
left hanging. Yeah, that's right.
Can you forgive me?
It's not been acknowledged.
It is a full circle moment.
Yes.
And I grew up in Missouri where
you show me,
there's a but that's not what I was going to say. There's a camper. I grew up camping and canoeing in Missouri, and we had a credo: you leave a place better than you found it. So you have to take everything full circle in this life. You want to leave it better than you found it. So you want to leave a relationship better than you found it. So you want to enhance this person's life. So if they feel wounded by you, you want to be good and sure that it's cleaned up. I've harmed you. I apologize. What can I do to make it up to you? Can you forgive me? Yes, I forgive you. Then if the issue resurfaces, because in my clients, the biggest complaint that the men have about the women is, she never lets anything go. Well, this is how you do it. And so if someone's in the habit of hanging on to things, and you do this process with them, the 4 A's, and then the thing comes up again. Hey, this reminds me of that time you stepped on that on my toe.
Then I would imagine the issue was never really settled.
Well, hey, you remember that time? This reminds me of when you stepped on my toe. Then you can say to that person, oh, yes, it is like that time. And remember, we did the 4 A's for that. We did the healing process for that. Do you remember that? And then the person can say, oh, yeah, I do remember that. Okay, I'm letting that in. I'm soaking that apology back in. I'm taking it back into my heart. I'm forgiving you all over again. I'm sorry I brought it up again. Now, that's one way. The other thing is if somebody repeats, brings back an old wound, and you say, wow, I already did the 4 A's for that. Does that still hurt for you? you could say, yes, that does still hurt. I just realized that 4A's, the act of amends wasn't big enough because you step on my toe chronically. So just a foot rub wasn't enough. I want you to write me a long letter of apology outlining how you will never step on my toe again.
I don't know if I could do that.
A letter of apology?
Oh, my gosh. No,
do
I
what
could
part?
not. Writing a letter, oh, my goodness.
Oh, you couldn't write a letter of apology?
No, I couldn't do that. I could
You
apologize.
You mean if you hurt somebody, like let's say you, I don't know, forgot your wife's birthday.
Well, no, I take that back. Well, yeah, no, I think if it was a small issue.
Oh,
like,
I'm glad you said that. That's right, Rich, because the act of amends should be equal in weight to the wound. So
yes.
if it was a big wound, it's a big. I mean, I've had couples where someone flirted, had a text message flirt, the woman's fiancé.
Yes.
He flirted with a text, with I don't know, a temporary. Well, there's bigger problems if you're flirting and you're engaged.
There's something there,
there's
right
bigger problems.
there.
But this couple, I was teaching them the 4A's, and so what she wanted from him was.
So what was his punishment? He had to flirt with his wife extra more?
Well, kind of. She wanted a sticky note. I help people think things up. Sometimes people can't think things up. She wanted a sticky note, one sticky note every day for 30 days, hidden somewhere where she would find it in the morning, like on the orange juice bottle or on her toothpaste or in her shoe.
Uh-huh.
And so she wanted more, with that kind of problem, they had to work on the deeper issues. I mean, there's a lot of deeper issues going on there when there's infidelity or that's not like even a text flirt is not really like a small thing because
it's not. That is not. Yeah, that's indicating. Yeah. I was trying to think of maybe a better example of a small, maybe a stub toe, on accident.
Here's my favorite.
I don't. Yeah.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite example. I had this adorable couple for years. I knew this girl since she was 13 because her parents came to me when I first opened my practice. Anyway, she grew up. She got engaged. She and her fiance came. Different guy, different couple, not the one who had the flirt. This adorable couple, they were really doing great. They were firing on all pistons. They only had one issue that was chronically surfacing. He worked for his father, who was a lawyer, and he was a paralegal, and he would get ready to leave the office. This was before cell phones. He would call her and say, okay, I'm leaving now. And she would get dinner started. And on his way out the door, his dad would stop him and give him like 10 more things to do, and he would try to just rush and get them done and not call and say, I'm going to be late. So he would be late by 20 minutes, half hour, 40, 45 minutes.
Yes.
So it was bugging them all the time, which is also another issue. There's always underlying issues. His underlying issue was setting healthy boundaries with his dad. No, Dad, I can't do that. I'm leaving now.
Yes.
Or calling the woman, calling the fiancé and renegotiating.
And saying, hey, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's a broken agreement if you call after you said you were going to be. If you said I'm going to be there at 5 and you call at 5 after 5 and say I'm going to be late, it's a broken. You call before 5 o'clock and you renegotiate the agreement. I'm sorry, I have 2 other things I have to do. Is it all right with you if I'm 20 minutes late? You renegotiate before the agreement's broken. Anyway, they had the funniest act of amends because she was always so sad and hurt. And when they did the 4A's, she said, every time you're late, I feel like I don't matter to you, which makes me feel worthless and sad. And so he did I acknowledge that every time I'm late, I make you feel, now this is not counselor language, but this is not a counselor technique. I made this up. This is this is a Jane Fendelman technique.
Yes.
So every time, so we say, I made you feel. Every time I'm late, I make you feel like I don't care about you, like you don't mean anything to me. I make you feel worthless. And she says, yes, thank you. And he says, I deeply apologize for being late and making you feel like you don't matter to me and making you feel worthless. And then he says, what can I do to make it up to you? So she couldn't think of anything, so I helped her. So they went off and came back the next week, and they're all smiles. How did it go? And she said, well, I loved it. the active amends that we came up with was however many minutes he was late.
Don't get explicit with weird intimate stuff.
Oh no, believe me, I've done enough radio and TV that I've gotten good at censoring myself.
Oh, okay, good.
So, yeah, I've done national radio where there's no, lag time or censor. Nobody's with a button on standby.
And it just goes off, yeah.
Yeah, I learned how to not cuss or say anything naughty. So,
they came back happy. Yeah.
They decided that the act of amends was however many minutes he was late, he had to serve her. He had to be her servant, no matter what it was. And so it was holiday times during Christmas, New Year's. So they came back, and she said they were at a black tie affair business party, so all the other lawyers and paralegals were there. And she said, I want some of my minutes right now. Please go and get me a drink and then come back here and kneel on the floor, and I'm going to sit in this chair, and you're going to give me a foot massage. And he bowed, and he said, your wish is my command, my lady. I love you. And off he went. He fetched her a drink, and he came back, and he's on, in a black, and he's in a tuxedo, kneeling. Took her shoes off, and he's massaging her feet. And his colleagues are stopping by. Dude, what are you doing? And he looked up at them with a big smile, and he said, I am serving my lady. So she got him doing all kinds of things, house chores and romantic things, in the bedroom. But they were so happy, and from then on, whenever he was late, she felt happy instead of mad and sad.
Yeah, and she also realizes intentions aren't cruel. I think that's a relief as well. Right,
and when you think of a yes after you that's sort of fun, it gives it a sense of humor. I mean, they don't always have to be fun.
Yeah, that's right. There's a trust there, and it makes it relax and puts it in a better state.
Right, and that's one of the things that keeps couples together is a sense of humor.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that as well. We talked about briefly before about the divorce. I think this is probably our last area that we can cover because of time. But what do you say? What do you say about? I mean, the divorce rate is as big as it's ever been.
Yeah, I think people.
And we pondered it a little bit, and I brought up thing like because like your fundamental Christian will say, "Ooh, you've walked away from God," but the statistics on Christians is as high, it's parallel to anybody other group as far as the divorce rate is as well as either. And I feel like there's a sense of selfishness. That you somehow you deserve more, in either a relationship or whatever, and so it's always the grass is a little greener, or this is not as It's a woman always says, or a man will say, "Well, I wasn't happy." I don't know. For some reason, that just doesn't satisfy me as an answer for divorce. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think people don't really know exactly how to get happy in it because people don't know how to communicate. It really goes back to communication, because if you have passion, you can make it if you are both willing to learn how to communicate in a new way. And passion is important in a relationship, in a beloved relationship, and passion is a little bit volatile sometimes. So usually couples that are passionately in love can have some really passionate fights. But people have to control themselves and not do what I call the bark and run, which is that thing where people yell or tell each other off and then walk out.
Yes.
And it's just the absolute most immature way to communicate.
Yeah,
it's like
I'm guilty of that to an extent.
It's like being on a, kindergarten playground and you don't know how to talk, so you just fight.
Yeah, well, that's
or
what
run away.
Yeah, that's right. That's what my father, that's what he would do. Just go that way and shush, and then we just have like drones just have to do what he said. And so I get into the habit of the same thing.
And that's what we do to our kids. Our kids learn how to communicate by how we communicate, either with our mate or with our kids. And a lot of people get sent to their room. Like you get yelled at, or worse than that, you get hit, and you get sent to your room, and you learn how to communicate. And you learn how to not feel safe trying to communicate with other people. And so it really takes a lot of presence and self-mastery to stay and sit down when you're furious and communicate, I am furious, without hitting below the belt or, disparaging the other person. In a beloved relationship, you have to have respect and communication and fun. You have to, or it just won't work.
Oh, that also goes back to there's I think two questions you ask yourself when you're in a relationship. How does that person make you feel? And
the study I
thought that was informative. That was good.
Yeah, it was
Explain
Yale or
that.
Harvard. Yale or Harvard did a study years ago where they took a cross-section of very different people, 100 couples, and if I'm remembering it right, I might be remembering that part wrong, but they had a lot of...
Okay, you there?
Yes, we got cut off.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was I have a digital phone. So it's really super cheap, and long distance is free. So it's the greatest thing in the world. The technology is great, but it's a little skippy on me. Okay, so Harvard did their study, and say that again?
Yeah. It was Harvard or Yale, and they took something like 100 couples, all from different walks of life, and they interviewed them to find out how they thought they were together for so many years, happy.
Yes.
That was the caveat. I always say I never stand up at a big, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, let's applaud them. They've been together for 25 years.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Yeah, 55 years of hell,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't applaud for people just because they've been together a long time. There's a lot of people that stay together just because they're scared.
Yeah, my grandfather,
to be alone.
my dad wouldn't talk about it, but my mom would tell me about my grandfather, old Italian guy, and his wife. In up East Coast, the whole East Coast thing, and they just were, it was just miserable, to the end. They woke up in the morning and they went to bed every night, jabbing each other, and you can't go on like that forever.
So
and then the kids were gone, so they just said the hell with it.
Yeah, don't stay together for the kids, because that means you're teaching your children how to stay in an unhealthy, unhappy relationship. Either fix it or say goodbye. So Harvard or Yale, whoever did this study, and the couples, and they interviewed them separately. They interviewed all the men and women, all the couples, separately, individually. So each partner did not hear what their mate said about why they thought they had this longevity and this happiness. So all of these 200 people of these 100 couples gave very, very many different answers. They were varied, every possible thing you could imagine, but they all gave one answer that was the same. Every person gave the same answer among the many answers that they gave. And the answer was, I stay with this person and we're happy. I stay with them because of how I feel about me. Not because that person loves me, not because I love them. It's because how I feel about me when I'm with this person. So that's what you have to ask yourself when you're in a relationship. How do I feel about me when I'm in this relationship? And you have to ask yourself, does this relationship enhance my life or cost me? Does it feed my heart and soul, or does it cost?
But couldn't it be? Could it be that the answer to that question could be a shallow one? And then how do you measure whether or not it's shallow or not?
Do you mean how someone feels about
themselves? If somebody says, hey, you know what, I love to dance, and this person can dance. And
yeah.
And the fact that we're together and we dance on the floor, it just brings attention, and I love it. I mean, that's really kind of shallow.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, it can be shallow, and if dancing or weightlifting or mountain hiking or mountain biking or doing
I work out a lot, and I see sometimes I'll see musclehead couples.
If that's the biggest thing in your life, then it's perfect for you to have a mate that matches you at that level. And so somebody who likes exploring the inner world, personal growth or spirituality, if something deeper is what turns you on, then you need a mate who supports that. So it doesn't matter how shallow or how deep the answer is. What matters is, are you the best version of yourself? Does this person bring out the best in you, or do they bring out the worst in you?
I think those are good questions to ask, and I think we're gonna end it right there. And this has been fun.
One last thing. I would say you have to ask yourself, is this person able and willing to work on this relationship and make it better? If they're not, then don't stay. Yeah. Don't stay and try to change them, because that's abuse. Trying to stay and change somebody for the better.
Oh, I never looked at it that way. That's interesting. Changing somebody is like abuse, huh?
You're abusing them. Even if they're an alcoholic and you're trying to get them to stop drinking and they don't want to stop drinking, if you stay with them and keep trying to make them, you're abusing them by trying to force them to change. They don't want to change. Leave them alone. And I'll end on this. In Missouri, we used to say, you can't teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. You can't go. You can't force somebody down a road they don't want to be on. I mean, that's silly. They're just going to get back off it as soon as they get a chance.
Exactly.
Oh, well, this has been great.
Thank you.
And I'm going to put, this is very important. I want you to repeat one last time before I let you go. What is it you do with kids? And you can say that one more time, because we're going to put your phone number up.
Okay. I do individual couples and child family sessions. With kids, I know how to cure ADD, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, all of the childhood disorders. I know how to cure them without drugs in 3 to 5 sessions by just meeting with the parents. Now, if the child is older, like 11, 12, 13 years old, you're welcome to bring your child in with you. Oh. But for the younger kids, I don't even have to meet with them.
Wow.
To cure them.
Okay, well, I'm putting your number up, 602-532-0335. And,
great. And you can put my website up there, too, if you want to.
We'll put your link to your website as well. And I think this was good and informative, and hopefully we'll chat again, and I appreciate you as a customer as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you, too.
All right, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care, Rich.
All righty. All right, bye-bye.